And lastly, Senator Mendoza's item 30, SB 1362. Our first item up today will be presented by its author, our Senate Pro Tem, Senator Kevin DeLeon. Item number 32, SB 1407. Senator, welcome.
Good morning. Mr. Sohn, and to the incoming members who will be with us shortly. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 1407, which addresses the dangers posed by self-assembled firearms known as ghost guns in California. The firearms are called ghost guns because they're built at home. They are put together like Lego or Erecto sets with no serial number or background checks involved. The bottom line is that no one knows that these guns exist until, unfortunately and tragically, a crime has been committed. The threat is real, and we're beginning to see an emerging black market for home-assembled guns as a way to circumvent our gun laws in California. As reported by the Sacramento Bee in December of last year, hundreds of these guns have been seized right here in Northern California by federal agents in undercover operations. It's legal to manufacture a gun for personal use, but it's illegal to sell it. And criminals are taking advantage of this major loophole to make easy money. We all remember the Santa Monica tragedy back in June of 2013 when John Zarawi killed 5 people using a homemade gun, a ghost gun. Senate Bill 1407 holds those assembling personal guns to the same standard as all other gun owners by requiring a background check and a serial number to be obtained from the Department of Justice. That's all it does. Very simple. We don't prohibit anyone from manufacturing these ghost guns at their place of residence or elsewhere, but what we do require is that if they do assemble these so-called ghost guns, so they are now no longer titled or characterized as ghost guns, that they require a background check as well as a serial number from DOJ. Senate Bill 1407 takes a modest approach that is minimally intrusive to law-abiding citizens, but addresses these new threats to public safety. Mr. Leno, as well as Mr. Stone, and to the incoming members, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator. Witnesses in support of the bill.
Is that on? Good morning. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Chief Tejada here on behalf of the California Police Chiefs Association in strong support of SB 1407. I'm here to discuss the significant public safety benefits of requiring every person who makes or assembles a firearm to obtain a serial number for each firearm. First, this bill will decrease the number of untraceable firearms in California. This is incredibly important for law enforcement since every bit of information is critical during investigations for crimes involving firearms. One of the most significant clues we can get is the gun used in the act, since we can trace the serial number to previous crimes or past owners. Even if the firearm comes back stolen, we can gain important leads that often prove instrumental during the investigation. For example, last fall, a ghost gun was used in the Stockton bank robbery that resulted in the death of a female hostage. Because the assault rifle used in the crime had no markings or serial numbers, there were no records for law enforcement to examine. At this point, the investigation into where that particular firearm came from has hit a dead end. Unfortunately, without a change in the law, these dead-end cases will only become more common. Another public safety benefit of SB 1407 is the requirement that every person who assembles a firearm must first pass a criminal background check. Cal Chiefs supports universal background checks and, as such, is greatly concerned by the accessibility prohibited persons have to these untraceable weapons. This concern is increased by what we have seen in the mass production of ghost guns using 3D printers. Gunsmithing has become easier than putting together IKEA furniture. thanks to 3D printers that can produce an 80% lower receiver with the push of a button. That technology has led to a recent increase in homemade firearms hitting the black market. Last October, undercover ATF agents seized 239 firearms during a single raid in the Central Valley. Many of these were ghost guns. Across the state, these cases are becoming more frequent, and these weapons are increasingly being used in crimes. Although criminals will continue to find ways to undermine our laws, we should not let that be an excuse to do nothing. We have a chance with SB 1407 to help our officers solve crimes and prevent dangerous persons from obtaining high-powered firearms. Both help avoid further pain to victims, which is our ultimate goal. And for these reasons, I am requesting your support for SB 1407. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And another witness in support of the bill.
Is this on?
Yes.
Amanda Wilcox here on behalf of the 27 California chapters of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. We are in support of this bill. As probably most of you know by now, one of our key goals is to make sure that every person with a firearm has passed a background check, and also there's a record of that firearm so that can be traced if it's used in crime, and also so that person can be disarmed if they subsequently become prohibited. The assembled gun and 3D printed gun is an alarming development in our state and across the country. In terms of the plastic guns, that is an emerging technology that is going to become perfected, most likely, where these guns don't just self-explode after they're fired 3 times, but will become guns that are widely available, I fear. These guns, of course, won't meet the basic safety standards that handguns have to meet in our state. Therefore, it is the provision in this bill that those guns cannot be transferred. We are in strong support of that. The assembled gun issue with the lower receivers, the partial receivers, is very alarming. As you've heard, these guns are found more and more in crime. The U.S. Government Accountability Office has indicated that this is very much complicated. Their investigation of weapons being transported to Mexico, partial receivers are being used more and more for those. These are assembled into guns for which there's no record and no background check, and those guns actually may be assault weapons. You heard about the Santa Monica shooting. I won't say the name, but there is a gun dealer in Oceanside who has building parties where people come together and build weapons out of these partial lower receivers. And these are used to, this attracts people because they can get a gun this way without a background check and, of course, no record, which we all want. Unfinished receivers generally are available at a fairly low price, between $60 and $250, and as I understand, the process takes only 1 to 7 hours to build. So this is a real problem in our state of guns getting into the hands of people who are prohibited, who are dangerous. They can be assembled into assault weapons, and at the very least, we need to make sure there's a background check and a serial number. That's a easy, simple step to start to deal with this very big problem. I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Steve Lindley. Good morning. I'm representing the California Department of Justice Bureau of Firearms, and myself and the fellow agents are here for technical questions from the committee.
Thank you. Are there others in support of the bill?
Sylvia Solis-Shaw on behalf of City of Los Angeles City Attorney Mike Fuhrer in strong support.
Thank you. Are there speakers in opposition to the bill? Seeing and hearing none.
They're coming.
Yeah. We are going to have a number of bills related to gun safety regulation today. It would help if people who know they want to testify on those bills would be ready, because we have so many bills before us.
Congratulations.
Thank you, gentlemen. Who will start?
Chairman and members, Sam Paredes representing Gun Owners of California. I want to just set a little bit of the record straight. Individually manufactured firearms have been made by law-abiding citizens throughout America for decades and decades and decades. It has never been any sort of a real source of crime. They have not been used in rashes of crimes. The number of instances where this has occurred in the state of California can be counted in single digits when they have actually been used in the commission of crime. Law-abiding citizens, according to federal law and state law, are allowed. It is permissible for them to manufacture these guns. And this bill will do nothing to prevent a criminal from either building their own gun or stealing a gun without background checks, avoiding everything. And it's not like we're making it more difficult for them. They are still going to do it. And what is going to happen is that law-abiding citizens who avail themselves of existing laws under the federal laws and the state laws are going to be denied this opportunity. It is not for the government to decide whether somebody is concerned that they fear that the government is going to do something to take their guns. That is a very real concern. And by manufacturing these guns and legally possessing them and legally using them, they address those concerns that they have. With regards to the parties, the assembly parties and stuff like that, that is something that happens, and it's not illegal. It is a way when people get together to efficiently and correctly and safely assemble these legal firearms. It is not an issue. There are far more things we can do to address crime in California. This is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Ed Worley with the National Rifle Association. It seems for years and years and years now, political persons have struggled with this issue because apparently they don't like the fact that people are smart enough to build things. So what we do is we constantly run through this drill of trying to constantly ban technology. You're not banning the 3D printers that people can use. You're not banning the technology that they have in their possession. You're not banning the parts. So what's ended up happening, which happens all the time in this legislature, we're going to create a law that you try to put this dragnet out and catch all the bad people. And that's the game that we play. The fact of the matter is the Mexican drug cartels make their own guns in Mexico. They get their guns from Venezuela. I highly doubt they're going to be shopping at building parties in Oceanside, and the Medellin cartel is going to be going, hey guys, let's have a building party in Oceanside so we can get more guns for our drug dealers. It's fascinating to me that constantly we have this debate here at the Capitol that drug dealers and drug cartels that have billions of dollars of money are going out and buying guns from individual citizens up and down the state because they are shopping for discount guns because they just don't want to pay the freight. So constantly what we're going to have here now is that the bill, I understand what the senator's trying to do, and I appreciate it. He and I have always had very vigorous discussions on his legislation. The challenge is now you're requiring to affix serial numbers on the gun. You don't define where to do it. You don't define how to do it. The question then becomes how do you do it? Citizens are going to try to do it themselves. Then what's going to end up happening is going to be some kind of interaction with law enforcement, and they're going to make a technical violation. The serial number isn't clear enough. It's not put where it belongs. It's not affixed into the gun. The fact of the matter, criminals, in case you hadn't figured it out, when they want to make a ghost gun, what they do is they steal a gun and then they machine off the serial numbers that are already on the gun by creating ghost guns of real guns. So now we're going to go around the back way. So we're going to go and take hobbyists who like building guns and we're going to make them criminals. If you talk to any person in law enforcement, they constantly find guns that had the serial numbers taken off of the guns by machining tools and everything else. That's already illegal. So what we're going to do is create yet another impediment upon people exercising their rights. You're going to drag tens of thousands of people who aren't criminals, because here's the thing, I go to the DOJ to get a background check because I say I want to maybe build a gun in the future. Well, the question is that under federal law, you cannot execute a NICS background check unless you're transferring a gun. So the very background check the bill requires you to do, you cannot access federal guidelines and federal database to do it. You know why? Because you haven't manufactured the gun yet. You don't have a gun. The federal NICS background check system is there for you to interact with the federal government to find out if you're prohibited or not. So the very background check you're telling us to do in the bill, the DOJ can't do. Why? Because they're not doing a federal background check, and the federal system does not allow the California Department of Justice to access the federal background check system unless you're trying to buy a gun. So the very background check you're requesting cannot be executed. For years and years, I've come to this legislature, and it's extremely frustrating to constantly have the same debate over and over again. The governor has already vetoed a bill like this, yet here we go again. We're going to throw another bill into the hopper so people can stand around and pretend they're trying to solve a problem. I recommend, instead of wasting the millions of dollars it's going to cost to do this, here's an idea. Why don't you give the Department of Justice more money for more agents to crack down on black market trafficking? Why don't you make it even a stiffer crime for criminals who create ghost guns by taking real guns and obliterating the serial numbers on those? Yet when you talk to prosecutors, what they end up doing is they end up plea bargaining this out. So therefore, you give them incentive to do what they're doing. So instead of playing this game, here's an idea of something we should try to do. Give the DOJ the money they need for the investigators. Give local law enforcement the money they need to crack down on black market trafficking. If you find a criminal out there who's creating ghost guns from real guns, slap them with a major offense. Make it so difficult for people creating ghost guns from real guns that no one wants to do it. Don't throw my members under the bus again for hobbyists who are creating guns for hobbies under federal law that they can do when they don't find out about it. And they take it to a gunsmith and say, hey, pal, I want you to put a scope on my rifle I built. The gunsmith is going to have to then turn them into DOJ. So then DOJ is going to swoop in and they're going to make a collar. Oh, great, we caught the hobbyist who created a gun in his home. And that's going to really help everybody in law enforcement, isn't it? So all of these various reasons, that's why we continue to oppose the bill, and that's why the governor vetoed it last year. Thank you very much for your time.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Craig DeLuz with the Firearms Policy Coalition. Just a few things that I'd like to note. You know, this measure requires the serialization of all unserialized firearms, in particular for handguns dating back to 1899 and long guns dating back to 1968. One of the things that's important to understand is in the last few decades, firearms policy hasn't changed overwhelmingly. So one of the things that you're doing is you're putting law enforcement in the position where they have to determine the age of a firearm. And in many cases, that's not done without a destructive metallurgical test of the firearm, meaning they have to destroy the firearm in order to find out how old, in fact, it is. Another item that was brought up is that there is no provision in this bill to actually communicate with the society in general or those who might be a part of the hobbyist community in order to make sure that they know that this is in fact the case. So if you go and you do this and there's no one tells you that you have to get a serial number, you are now in violation of the law. The other question is going to be, as people are doing this, initially because people have already built firearms and now they realize they have to get serial numbers for them, I mean, is there any provision in this bill to actually fund the Department of Justice in order to be able to handle all of these additional background checks? Is there any provision that is going to allow them to be able to do that as well? And then you're going to require the hobbyist who wants to build or manufacture their firearm, you're going to require them to wait in order to get that serial number. And for those who've already done it and submitted it, are they now in violation of the law because they've requested it but have not received their serial number? You know, then there's just the absurd notion that if I want a weapon and I'm prohibited and I'm a criminal, I'm going to go commit a crime. I'm going to manufacture a firearm and I'm going to put all of the ugly features on it. And then, oh wait, I'm going to go get a serial number to serialize this gun that I'm about to go commit a crime with. The idea that that would occur is absurd. All this does is put additional burdens upon law-abiding citizens, and I believe unreasonable measures upon law-abiding citizens. It is for these reasons that we oppose this measure.
Are there other speakers in opposition?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Roy Griffith on behalf of California Rifle and Pistol Association, oppose.
Thank you. Others in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, are there questions and comments from members of the committee, or Senator De Leon, would you like to respond?
No.
To some of the concerns that were raised? Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to basically follow up on what you are suggesting. There was a lot of good questions, Senator, Mr. Pro Tem De Leon. And I know that your motivation is to try to stop the heinous deaths that we see occurring in areas of all of California, and a lot in the urban areas where you come from. So I know that your intentions are good. However, we had some testimony about the 239 firearms that were found in Central California. I would opine that these are not law-abiding citizens. These are criminals that want to further their enterprises. I'm concerned about a few things. One, it seems as though this bill is completely identical to one that the governor had vetoed in the past, and I was wondering, unless I've missed something, what's changed about the bill that you think that the governor would strongly entertain signing this bill, should it make it to his desk? I'm also concerned about people that collect firearms as a hobby, Civil War era weapons. Are they going to have to take them out of their trophy cabinets? And we heard that take them to a metallurgist would destroy this valuable gun that certainly wouldn't suffice for going and doing bank robberies. And then
Let me try to take
Sure.
before you load up.
Sure, thank you.
No pun intended on loading up.
Yes.
With regards to the antique guns, there is an exemption for antique guns. I don't want to get caught up in the hyperbole with regards to guns from a certain period or certain era. So we have antique guns that are exempted from this. So I understand the concern right there. Secondly, with regards to similar measure you made reference to that was vetoed by the governor last year. Yes, indeed, there was a measure that was vetoed by the governor. Not a lot has changed with regards to the content of the measure itself. That being said, things can change, obviously, with regards to engagement with supporters as well as those who oppose this measure. What has changed is last year, federal agents in Northern California discovered a cache of weapons, hundreds of weapons that were being produced in personal residences or places of business that are quote-unquote known as ghost guns, because there's no trace of the guns at all whatsoever. The day that the gun was actually manufactured or created. And I think that, what we're witnessing right now, engaging with law enforcement, both local as well as state, ATF, I've met with them on numerous occasions, in Los Angeles in particular, is that individuals who perhaps are not up to no good, it used to be the pattern. The custom and practice has been to go across Tahoe through Truckee and obviously through the I-80 to Reno, or go up the I-15 to Vegas, through your district, Mr. Stone, or go through the 110 to Arizona. And because those three states, or those two states in particular, our neighboring states have much more liberal laws as it pertains to handguns, long guns, automatic weapons. They would easily sell them, purchase them, come back to California and sell them. Here, domestic purchases of all the above itemized weapons that I just made reference to, you would use a straw buyer, obviously, to make a lawful purchase of said weapons in the state of California at a point of business. That part is sort of kind of falling by the wayside because of the ability to easily manufacture these so-called ghost guns at a place of residence. I think at minimum, we should have standards that are across the board. If you purchase a weapon whether it is a Big Five, if it is a Walmart, if it's a bait and tackle store, a mom and pop shop, you know. And if you do have a weapon that you manufacture, you should be able, that should be registered with the Department of Justice. Be mindful that these aren't just hobbies, but this is a weapon that, irrespective if you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you believe in the Second Amendment or you don't believe in the Second Amendment, the objective and goal of a weapon is to, you know, maim or kill either an animal or a human being. Now, I know there's sport, there's clay shooting. I have participated in that too. I enjoyed it very much so. But, you know, these are instruments, these are weapons, they're not widgets that have the potential to maim or kill another human being. So I believe there should be a universal application at minimum with regards to any weapon that is manufactured. I just believe that is common sense in the state of California.
What would you say to a person that owns an AR-15 that was manufactured in 1967, another one in 1975? How would they get an assessment of the gun to get it serialized as to the date of manufacture, and in some cases, what kind of a gun it is?
I'm not quite sure if I can understand the question with regards to the AR-15 in question and the two specific dates.
Right, because they were both manufactured, I believe.
Excuse me. Please go through the chair.
Okay.
Senator Stone. Senator De Leon is trying to answer your question, and you sort of interrupted him. I'm not sure if you're finished answering his first question.
The first question, yeah, or the series of questions, I think.
Okay, so this is an additional question.
Yes, so the question is, if I have a gun and I'm not sure it doesn't have a serial number, what is the process to get it identified without destroying the gun, is the first question. And the next question is, we talked about a public education campaign should this pass and be signed by the governor. I didn't see any provisions on how we're going to educate the public that may not follow traditional news media, and we're going to be creating criminals out of innocent people, which is my...
Well, yeah, I thank you for the questions. And to take your question, the latter question, I think that's the process of having the hearings in public safety, our first step, which is to sort of tease this out. You know, what are the possible ramifications, consequences, and so forth. So if this measure does move forward, if this measure just gets codified into law, therefore signed into law, what are we going to do as a state legislative body, but Department of Justice specifically as part of the executive branch or separate constitutional branch, to do a public community orientation. This is the new law. You know, you have to understand these are the new requirements. I'd be more than happy to speak with you and what we can do to make sure that if we're lucky to get the measure signed into law, what the Department of Justice should be doing in terms of outreach to folks who are so-called, you know, hobby enthusiasts of manufacturing these types of guns at home.
And then back to the AR-15, if you could just tell us what the process was.
Yeah, on that, I don't have the technical expertise. So I'm hesitant to wade into, I don't know, perhaps, I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, Department of Justice or the Chief of Police. That I don't have the technical expertise enough to give you an answer that I believe will be accurate. So I'm going to hold on to that. I may be able to secure that question for you after. I don't know if the answer to that question is contingent on your support of the measure. You know, if it is, I'll secure it for you right now in real time. Is it?
Well, I'm listening to all the testimony and want to, obviously I want to pass a bill that you are able to comply with. And to me, this might be a compliance issue where do we have the technology to be able to identify what you want to identify?
But I think you would, through the chair, obviously through the Madam Chair, I think you would agree that we have a problem, we have a major issue right now with the manufacturing of these guns that are falling to the hands of criminals. I, under no illusion, am under the assumption that this is the complete panacea, that this will create an airtight lock, you know, grip on criminals getting these into their hands, under no illusions at all whatsoever. But I do believe that we have to have a minimum baseline, if you will, of the application of serial numbers of any weapons that are on our streets, or those who lawfully or, possess these weapons. This is, we register cars in the state of California. If you drive a car in a highway, local streets, it's registered with the state of California. These are weapons that have the potential to maim or kill another human being, whether you purchase it at a big five store or you manufacture it at home. We should have a registration. Again, those are my subjective commentaries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Anderson?
Senator, do we have any idea what the cost of implementing this is?
That I don't know. They'll probably do a fiscal analysis when we get to appropriations. We're going to deal with the policy issue here, so we'll figure out what happens in appropriations.
I get that we deal with policy here. One of the policies I'm most concerned about is we haven't gone through the prohibited list yet, and if we add more work, that may push the prohibited list back, which means that some felons may be walking our streets with a weapon. And when I'm thinking in terms of policy, I want to prioritize the most dangerous threat to citizens over registering weapons that may not ever be used.
Well,
so from a policy point.
May through the Madam Chair, may I suggest, maybe that's a question. Are you suggesting perhaps an appropriation increase so we don't have the prohibited list of persons fall to the wayside, and we make sure we follow that robustly, because I know Senator Mark Leno had a lot to do with that through a budget. Are you suggesting that we have an appropriation increase?
And his joint author had a lot to do with it, too.
But I just want to make sure for it's the record.
My concern is...
So are you suggesting that we have an appropriation increase to make sure we can take care of this as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Or you could say it this way, I want to make sure that we still prioritize going after the prohibited list.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay, and we will consider that in Budget Sub 5. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? Senator Leno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator De Leon. Do we know if any other states are dealing with this issue legislatively?
I think legislatively, it's a good question. I don't know legislatively, Mr. Leno. I do know, maybe Ms. Wilcox may know from the Brady Group. I don't know that question, but I do know that many states are dealing with this vexing problem. There's no question about it.
Okay. And Madam Chair, if I may, I have a question for the Department of Justice. There was a suggestion in the opposition testimony that we might be putting people in a catch-22, that they wouldn't be able to register a firearm that they didn't currently own. Is that an accurate description of the problem, or you're clearly in support of the bill? You have no concerns that someone could comply with this proposed legislation without too much trouble?